Good morning, Gamecock fans. Today is Monday, August 11th, the year of our Lord 2025, and this is Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Welcome in. Hope you all had a wonderful, fantastic, amazing weekend. I know I did. Mother-in-law's birthday was this past weekend. We went to Chinatown, had a nice meal. Restaurant got a little crowded. She didn't like that too much, but it was certainly good to spend some time with her. You know, she's a great woman and just turned 80. Been very kind to me. Very obviously raised a tremendous daughter. And so hats off to Vara for her milestone birthday this past weekend. Big day here on the Chief Sports Network. After coffee, of course, we have Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show coming up with John Whittle on all things. Mike Morgan will co-host. Phil and I will be in with Mad Dog Monday and Sports Talk tonight here on the Chief Sports app, Chief Sports Network. Coffee's not on the app, so it's just a podcast on YouTube or on the podcast channel. So check it out. But so if you don't have the app and you want to check out our live shows and our archived live shows, be sure to download it. It's a free download from the Apple App Store. And many of you have downloaded the Chief Sports app. Plus, I think we're going to have some contests and stuff on there this year, pick'ems and such, and that's always a lot of fun. Win prizes. Yay, prizes. So anyway, the Gamecocks had a scrimmage this past weekend, first scrimmage of the preseason, and that's obviously what we're going to talk about here today. Lots of interesting feedback coming back from it, all in all. Pretty good scrimmage. The defense was ahead of the offense, but it's like I say all the time, you want that. Now, the only 2 years I can remember the offense going up and down the field and people were excited from the get-go, it was 2014 and 2020. And, I don't know that 2020 was a good offense at the end of the day. I think everybody had a good offense. It was good at running the ball with Mike Bobo and Kevin Harris, and offensive line blocked that year. But 2020, there was not much defense played in college football if you watch the games. And then 2014 obviously was a disaster on the defensive side of the ball. We've hashed all that out. So I always kind of hope, and it would be more of a red flag for me if the defense was not ahead of the offense. And that's kind of just how it is, man. There's a lot of overreaction out there. I saw somebody that covers LSU talking about, when he observes the practice period, the offensive line can't block Nussmeier and all that. This was last week. And I was like, well, dude, give them a chance. I mean, I have questions about LSU's offensive line too, because they replaced some talent and, you never know. I mean, you lose guys like they lost up front. Nussmeier's a good quarterback at kind of getting out of pressure sometimes, but he can't face unlimited pressure. He can't do what Lenore Sellers does. And so, but I thought that was really big overreaction. And I was like, come on, man. I mean, and then the preseason games this past weekend, Shadur Sanders and all that. I mean, come on. It's a preseason game. Somebody was smacking down Ashton Genty. 3 carries for -1 yards for the Raiders. I was like, dude, he got 3 carries. I quit watching preseason football. Pull for the Bears these days, and this is the second straight year, and this is more egregious because this was I believe a home game, maybe it was a road game. That's a home game, and I don't know. I got to check it out. I didn't even watch it because they didn't play. They played their backup quarterback the whole time, and I'm like, wherever this game is, if you're charging people money, and they are expensive to get to preseason games. Sometimes in pro markets, it's hard to get tickets at face value because the stadium's sold out. And there's a waiting list for season tickets and things like that. So people bring their families and stuff, and it's like, man, it's kind of like the NBA games where, yeah, I mean, and look, I get it from my coaching and football standpoint. I'd probably do the same thing. But pro sports, it's supposed to be entertainment, right? You're paying money to go see players perform. That's why they make the big bucks. And so to me, I don't know. I think it's a ripoff. And every year, I'm less enthusiastic about watching preseason football. Ergo, I am, there's a bad taste in my mouth. I want to throw up every time I see one of these hot takes on anybody. Maybe Shooter Sanders ends up being good. I don't know. But so overreactions throughout college football. I do want to say this fan base, at least those on the bigspur.com and all over X, I mean, they're, pretty level headed about it. I think that having been through some previous mini preseasons around here before, there's always some panic after that first scrimmage because it's always that the defense gets after the offense pretty good. And, last time I checked, a lot of those years, Carolina had pretty good offense at the end of the day. So I always like it for the defense to be ahead of the offense. And the thing is this too, you're about a couple weeks into preseason camp, 10 days as of yesterday. They've been grinding, going in 11 on 11s against each other. And, these days you don't have a whole lot of, I mean, they'll do the Oklahoma drill and things like that, but it's not as, they really are injury conscious. It's not as physical, and it's that way across the country. But in that first scrimmage, man, you're fighting for a spot on the depth chart and you're getting after it, you know? And so for a defense that has seen your offense every day because you're not working on Virginia Tech yet. You're trying to stop the Gamecocks offense. You have a mental advantage, with an offense, especially the offensive line and, with new players, there's a ton of mental mistakes you iron out in the scrimmage, operational things like that. Defense just sits there and pins their ears back and knows where you're going most of the time. So it's fundamentally unfair. What you want is the offense to respond the next scrimmage. They usually do. It's normal. And as long as you have like a normal deal during the preseason, I think that's just fine. I think that, team wise, you can't sit there and look and go, well, this unit's going to struggle because they didn't do that well in the scrimmage, blah, 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 blah. You can take a guess and have an opinion, but it's normally one of those things where it just, you never know until you know. But what you can tell in scrimmages and what's interesting to me and to others, and hopefully all of you out there, is individual performances because, practice is to determine who's going to go play in the games. And, there's some surprises, honestly, based on the feedback I got yesterday on some individuals we're going to discuss here directly. It wasn't all bad for the offense. I guess that's the takeaway. Defense was ahead. Defense looked fast and physical. The scrimmages in the spring were kind of the same. Defense really got the best of the offense, that kind of thing. But look, man, you're trying to block Dylan Stewart and some of these guys. I mean, that's tough. I get it. But fast is a key word when it comes to the defense, in my opinion, because if you think back to some of the defenses around South Carolina that maybe weren't that good, they were all just about speed deficient, not fast. Carolina's had some undersized defenses that were fast that were pretty good. I mean, truth be told, but the defense needs to be fast and play fast. That's a key, especially when you're going against drones and Pavia and Priblia and Priblia. Kreger, one of our listeners on the show, corrected me on that. Bo from Missouri. Those guys can get out of trouble and make you pay if you're not fast. And, because inevitably play is going to break down. Those guys are going to squirt out, and you need to be fast enough to recover to limit what they're going to get. I always use the example of Nakobe Dean at Georgia. I thought Nakobe Dean was a special player at Georgia. 5-star guy from Mississippi that played like it. And I'm sitting there watching, I believe, it was a national championship game against Alabama, the one they won, the one Georgia won. And Alabama he got out of position, and Alabama had the back or tight end, maybe it's a pass, something like that, wide open field in front of him. Open field. I mean, and Nakobe Dean changed directions and ran from the opposite sideline, and it was like a 9-yard gain. And I was like, wow. So linebacker speed is important, recovery speed, all that good stuff. It's important all over the defense. And when you have a collectively fast defense, that's where it makes a difference. Is inevitably they're going to catch you in something that you don't want to be caught in, call wise, and you got to be able to be fast enough to recover. So there's the advantage. And since the spring, that's what's been emphasized to me from multiple contacts around the program is fast, fast, fast. I expected it to be physical because, like I said, they're pinning their ears back. First shot, they're going to be out there wanting to knock somebody's block off, within reason. I mean, you always protect your teammates and things like that. You don't want to be stupid, but they're ready to get out there and get after it. But very good, very good feedback on the defense in particular, but it wasn't all bad on the offense, like I said. Just kind of the linebacking core. I've been personally high on these guys. I've said straight up, I think in time, if not right away, they'll be collectively better than last season. And, maybe they will be. I mean, they're doing pretty well right now in practice. You don't know how, obviously they got to go play another opponent. But, I've talked up Fred Johnson a whole lot and Justin Okoronkwo and Sean Murphy, and then Jerron Willis. And that's kind of one of our first, I don't want to call it a surprise because this has been sort of since the spring talked about. But Jerron Willis is having a good camp and really is a guy to keep an eye on as far as being that fourth linebacker in the rotation. I think that, and not just as a pass rushing guy either. We've talked about that, Alex and I, on the smorgasbord about maybe they bring him in and send him off the edge. I do think, he's a lot like Bam Martin Scott. So I do think you take advantage of his pass rushing ability because he can rush the passer. But I think he'll get in the rotation a little bit. He's having a good go of it. He transferred in from Ole Miss, class of 2023. He's one of the ones that his recruitment came down to Ole Miss and Carolina. He just went with Ole Miss. So there's one example of a guy that you recruited well, had a good relationship with, and he came immediately to you. Justin Okoronkwo would be one of those guys, as well as Jalen Brown, who unfortunately isn't playing this year, that came in from Missouri. I said that. I know a lot of you have questions about it because Beamer hasn't completely addressed it. That's not a definitive. I mean, maybe he does, but he's not playing right now, and I don't expect him to be back anytime soon. So I just want to clarify that before we, run off, because I know some still have a lingering question in your mind. Even if he got back, Jalen Brown, he's missed a lot of time. And so I don't, maybe by midseason, if he did come back right now. So, I just don't worry. We haven't talked about him a whole lot, but he was one, Missouri over South Carolina, like South Carolina and went. So, it's not always that happens. Dayton Key, of course, didn't sniff Carolina. He went off and went to Nebraska, and he was Kentucky or Carolina. So it doesn't always happen that way, but there's three examples right there of the Gamecock staff getting one back, and Jerron Willis is one of them. So, and Jerron came in and sort of when they went to the three-man front, I think it was the Texas A&M game, which was a really good defensive game except one quarter. I mean, in one quarter, they busted some passes on Carolina. I think they scored 21 points or 17, something like that. A&M won the game 30-17. But defense came out to play that day. They went to the 3-3-5, and it caught A&M off guard and played pretty well. Jerron Willis came in. I think got a tackle for loss, a sack. And so he played in the rotation in those games down the stretch. Last year, didn't hear much from him. You had Kamara, you had Fred Johnson, you had a lot of guys rotating in behind Demetrius Knight, Bam Martin Scott, Devo Williams. But this year, I mean, third year with the Carolina program, it looks like he's going to take a step forward. So that's good. I think he was a high 3, low 4-star guy out of South Georgia. So a relatively highly recruited player out of high school with Jerron Willis. So that's kind of the good thing there. Secondary, they've got some guys, man. I mean, I was told this weekend again that it's a very, very talented secondary. Obviously they're going to miss Nikki Nwore and O'Donnell Fortune. Those guys were really good players, but that doesn't mean they can't be replaced. I don't know that you can replace Nick, but that doesn't mean you can't be good at safety. And Peyton Williams and David Busey, there we go, are battling it out. They both had good scrimmages from what I was told. They're continuing to get after it. But a lot of good talk about the secondary. A lot of good talk about the secondary. And I want to say this too. It's not, because you always, people are like, well, the secondary played well. What does that mean for the receivers? Yeah, doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, because you have further questions on that to answer that definitively that we don't know. In other words, okay, so I'm about to talk about a defensive end that's, I haven't talked much about him, but we're about to talk about one, or an edge rusher, whatever they're calling it now. And, so good, real good scrimmage, right? Well, the question becomes then, as far as, projecting him to be in the two deep or to play. Okay, so was he going against Josiah Thompson or Casey Henry or Tree or one of those guys? Or, was Demola out there? True freshman. Was Shed Surratt out there? Who'd he beat? Because that makes a difference, because that's, who you're going up against. It's just like, I'll never understand the schedule. People that don't consider schedule, that cover college football for a living. It's like, well, that matters who you play. Well, it matters who you face off against one-on-one. And, well, who's the quarterback? Is it a backup quarterback? Did he call? I mean, how did that manifest itself? And those are the big questions that, we don't go to the scrimmages. So I don't know. So take it for what it's worth when you're, don't put anybody in the too deep just yet, when you hear all this, but, individually you can get a sense of progress, because you always want guys, no matter who they're facing, that go out there and make plays, because guess what? Some guys don't. It doesn't matter if they're, squaring off against Teddy Ruxpin on the offensive line and they're 6'3", 245 pounds. They just don't make plays. And so that's the difference. And that's why this is somewhat important, but there's always context. So, did want to put that out there, as far as, should we worry about this or that or the other? I don't. I used to. Well, are they good? I mean, really, even last year during the preseason, defense was really, really good. And everybody's like, was that just because the offense is so bad? And hey, it looked like it for the first little bit, didn't it? At the end of the day, though, offense kind of responded. But, so defensive end, edge rusher, obviously all the conversations there start with Dylan Stewart. We feel like everybody feels like he's taken another step. Man, spring game, he looked unblockable. But again, there were a lot of guys out there that walk-ons and such that couldn't. I mean, they're not going to be able to handle Dylan Stewart. All Americans can't handle Dylan Stewart. But, that guy's number 6. He's locked and loaded and ready to go for hopefully a big season. The other name that was mentioned to me with regards to pass rushing was George Wilson. So George Wilson, if you remember, was a second period portal pickup. And there are a couple of guys that did not come in for spring that we're going to talk about today that are kind of on the radar, right? So George Wilson, fast, big wingspan, from Virginia Beach. Muschamp and staff had him committed in the class of 2021. He flipped to Florida State. Florida State got a bunch of portal guys, and he ended up leaving and ended up at Campbell University. Campbell's one of those schools, I don't even know, a small private school in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. I'm like, how much money is football costing you? Why don't you just throw it into try to be a powerhouse in basketball or something? And they are in baseball at times. Remember, they came to Columbia and got their head kicked in, but looked really good as a team. But they have a football program. It's somewhat new, and he's up there and, had some good numbers rushing the passer. He's a little undersized, but he's gotten in the strength program at Carolina. still around 230, 235. But contactor two I talked to raved about him, said he was really fast off the line of scrimmage, and that he will be able to help them this year. So to me, that's encouraging. Uh, kind of, we'll see what he does. I'm not certainly not predicting a Kyle Kennard type of season from this guy, but if he hits and he can make some plays for Carolina, especially rushing the passer, which is very important, man, that's good. That's because that's a guy, when you kind of try to sketch out the four deep or six deep at end, you may not have had, or maybe had an asterisk by him as a pass rushing specialist or something like that. But and they've been high on him. Darren Usher, when we've had him on our show, when he's been on other shows, director of player personnel at Carolina, he's gone out of his way to mention George Wilson and the pass rushing ability and all that. So, hey, great. I'm good. I know he's got a big, big wingspan. And this guy's, he holds there's a picture of him holding his arms out. It's unbelievable. And so that was a name that really stood out. Another thing I want to say, just disclaimer here, I put it on the Big Spur if you're a VIP member. Just because I don't mention a guy or a guy's not in a scrimmage insider report, remember, we're not there. It doesn't mean, now when we used to go, I could go through and tell you something about every player that you care about. I didn't go through all 85, but I could tell you something about just about everybody. Because you watch 30, 40 plays and focus on different guys. That was back during the Spurrier era. They've been closed for a while, so so just because you don't hear about somebody doesn't mean they won't be in the two deep. Like, because you get the question sometimes, well, what happened to this guy? Well, you're trying to gather info and different contexts see different things, and maybe they didn't focus on him or see him. I don't know. They don't really release stats for these things either anymore. So, which is fine. There's strategery that goes into that. And with technology nowadays, I mean, you could really screw yourself if you opened a scrimmage and actually worked on things you're going to run, because somebody's going to have a camera. Everybody's walking around with a camera, and it's going to get out online, and Virginia Tech's just going to hit download. I mean, so I get it, especially nowadays. I mean, that with technology. I think even Spurrier, who didn't care because he felt like you weren't going to stop his offense anyway, uh, and wanted his team to have a crowd and get used to that, not be nervous. And that was one way to do it. I think even he would shut them down now, because basically you're just giving the opponent film, and they don't have any, for that first game. So anyway, that's the deal there. So just because somebody's not mentioned, like, I'll give you an example. Desmond Umazulu had a really good spring, got a lot of good feedback on that, was not mentioned to me. And so these guys could get held out too. We don't know. But that doesn't mean he's not doing well. Just to, break it down for you on that. But George Wilson, that was, I kind of thought George Wilson, if he could put on some strength, add some strength and weight and bulk, he could help them this year. I did not expect to have that kind of feedback from the scrimmage. He had a really good scrimmage. Defensive tackles, they're really excited about them. Just like Pat DeMarco said, go check out the Pat DeMarco interview on our YouTube channel. When he compared the Gamecock, he said they looked, it's just eyeball test, looked like an NFL team, and they are. Carolina's much bigger. That's a much bigger football team this year. And that's good because, like I said before, they've continued to maintain speed and athleticism. Hopefully. I mean, it's always a comparison. Hopefully they're as fast and athletic as other teams, but they are big. And you want to know why teams like Georgia and Alabama and LSU, Ole Miss last year on defense, why they're good? Texas. Because they're big and fast. If you're big, but you're slow, you're most of the teams in the Big Ten. If you're fast and small, you're most of the teams in the Big 12. If you're big and fast, you're a really good SEC team, or Ohio State or in some cases, Oregon actually does recruit pretty. They used to not be a very big team under Chip Kelly and those folks, but starting with Mario Cristobal and now with Dan Lanning, Oregon actually in the offensive line they go for mass. They have a lot of Samoans they recruit out of American Samoa. Those kids on the West Coast and in Salt Lake City and places like that. So that makes sense, because those big guys, small guys, really good defensive linemen too, really good players. I had a chance to go cover what's called the All Poly camp out in Salt Lake City one summer when I worked for ESPN.com, and they're really good people too. Love football, loved hanging out with those dudes. That was one of the best trips in my career I ever took. Of course, I was probably about 60 pounds overweight at the time, and it was not 96 degrees and humid like it was in Columbia. It was 72, so my big butt enjoyed that cool weather too. Anyway, but yeah, so being big and fast is important in the SEC, especially on defense and athletic too. Yeah, athletic too. So that's so listen to that Pat DeMarco interview. It's really, really good as he breaks it all down. But like he said, this is a bigger group, and D tackle is part of that conversation. Monkel Goodwine's 315, Nick Barrett's 330, Brownlow Dindy's around 315, 320. And I heard some good things about Gabe Brownlow Dindy, from my contacts and Nick Barrett. So look, man, the D tackle position is probably, there was a lot of concern. Some of it was way overblown, but I feel good. I think it's going to be different. I think, TJ Sanders and Tonka Hemingway were quick, twitchy, athletic guys that beat you with speed. TJ Sanders would beat you with his entire repertoire, if you will, last season. But TJ was about 295, 300. Tonka was about 290. Now there's about 20 more pounds per man in the rotation. And that's also a need to get guys like Troy Pikes and Xavier Hardy, maybe true freshman Christian Ingram going, because big guys the bigger you are, the sooner you wear out. And so Carolina's going to have to rotate, obviously, a lot with these guys, but I think they could do it. But the Brownlow, Dindy, Barrett, Goodwine, still continue to hear good things about those folks. But it wasn't all bad on offense. Here is a name that another late portal pickup for the Gamecocks from Colorado, Isaiah Augustov. Got his name right too this morning. Monday's off to a fantastic start. Colorado's leading rusher last year from Naples, Florida. Got in the portal. Originally was going to go join Tony Elliott at Virginia, and Virginia wouldn't let him in school. And so, good fortune for the Gamecocks. They got him in and got him late. 4-star kid out of high school. This is his third school. He went to Arkansas initially and wasn't happy there. Then Colorado, who's the starter and leading rusher, just didn't get the ball a whole lot. And I understand that. And I think Deion will probably continue to throw it a lot this year too. But here's the deal with him and why the feedback I got with him is significant. There's nothing to, by the way, Rasul Faison scrimmaged. The eligibility question still out there. At this point, it hurts my head to think about why it's taking this long. But he scrimmaged. I was told no fireworks or anything, but was also told that he brings a little bit different type of skill set to the table, just like we've been saying. Also, he runs very violently. Not that the other guys don't, but and violent could mean sudden and things like that too. Not necessarily just looking for collisions and all of that. Anyway, so that's the the feedback on Faison, but Augustov apparently showed, when you watch his clips from Colorado, you see a couple of like one play where he houses it, and it's kind of like that Oscar Attaway run in the bowl game. He just nothing but green, and he broke away. Nobody was going to catch him about 25 yards out. Other than that, you don't see a whole lot of that. You see a physical runner, you see a patient runner, you see a guy that has vision that can find the hole if there is one. At about 6'2", 215, 212, big guy too, big back. But what I was told is there's some explosiveness and breakaway ability that sort of reared its head in the scrimmage, and that if he gets to the third level, you're not going to catch him. So that's good. That's a good acceleration thing. That's a good back, and it's like, got to give credit to my man Clint from the Nana Sports chat box on the show. By the way, if you want to get in the chat box, $4.99 a month, you can sign up on the YouTube channel, interact with us every day. Clint was talking about, we were talking about Faison, and he made a great point that I did not think of when I was talking about the other backs on the roster. He said, here's the difference for me. It's when you have a hole, and whereas a normal back or an average back is 15, 17 yards, but with Faison, he can house it. So that's explosiveness, acceleration, big plays down the field. And I think Faison's elusiveness at the second and third level is definitely what sets one of the things that sets him apart. Watching his film, but with Gustav, you didn't really see that at Colorado. However, if he has that, that's good, because that's another guy that once he gets to the third level, you're not settling for 12, 13 yards. And that's good. That was, another guy that came in, and, after spring, that's getting up to speed. And yeah, if Faison's not eligible, will he be the starter? I don't think so, but I think he's put himself in position to get carries. I heard Matthew Fuller had a good scrimmage again. I'm high on him. He's an even different type of back. And then, obviously there's Oscar Attaway. And what was explained to me was he's probably, because I think Oscar's going to start if there is no Faison, that he's the most complete back. In other words, and it's like that. I mean, plus he's in the seventh year of football. So that means he knows the assignments. He's a good blocker. I think Oscar has really good hands out of the backfield, runs hard, that kind of thing. So, he had he's a good scrimmage as well, but we'll see kind of how all that is. But the storyline there with the running backs is definitely Isaiah. The young receivers looked good. They're really going to help. The older receivers played well. Lenora Sellers, some of you probably saw the Mike Yuva tweet about him being locked in and how Mike Shula's helped him. And I can confirm that with 100% accuracy as far as the observations from the scrimmage are concerned. And, it's just like a natural progression with quarterback. I mean, unless you're just a one-hit wonder and you're going to get better, as far as all that goes, and if you have a good coach, you're going to get better, and then they're not going to pile, because there's been some coaches that have done that around here. They're not going to just start piling a bunch of crap on you because of their own ego, or that they want to run this NFL whatever, and then set you back again. I mean, Mike Shula, if we know anything, because of what Beamer said and what we've heard, it's that you keep hearing that word simplify, simplify, simplify. And Dowell Loggins, to his credit, kind of did the same thing with regards to the quarterbacks. The guy before him obviously didn't. Kurt Roper back in the day, after Jake Bentley had a really good freshman year, he decided Jake was going to be Peyton Manning and throwing all these oh man. But Shula kind of looks like, from what we've heard, is going to go in the opposite direction and just continue to master the stuff, the base stuff. And I was just told that Lenoris looks so much more comfortable throwing the ball, hanging in there, making his reads. And what that does is, when the ball would sail on him a little bit, short and intermediate passes, or maybe he'd one-hop one out there. G.A. Mangus said this on Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show a few months back. Lower body gets set, and then your fundamentals help and take over. Lenore Sellers can throw the football. One of the biggest, most ridiculous myths out there is that in some way he's this limited passer, skill set wise. He can throw it. He's got a good arm. He can put touch on the ball. And then that's what I was told. Those touch passes are starting to come out big time. And that's good. That's good because that means more passing yards, more big plays, all that good stuff. So I can definitely back up that Mike Shula has done really well with Lenoris Sellers as far as that goes. Young receivers, and the guy that was mentioned to me was another Sellers, Pup Sellers, Jaden Sellers. Said, do not sleep on this guy. Return game, kicking, running the ball after catch. Said he's a really good player. So I think Jaden is kind of a forgotten man, but obviously he's got a connection there with his brother. Look out for him. That's a grand mystery as far as which of these true freshman receivers will end up, I guess, playing. Lex Cyrus is another guy that was mentioned that's put in a lot of work to get his body right. He's a little thin. Came in, kind of had to reshape a little bit, but super fast. And I don't know. I have some thoughts about Cyrus in the return game this year. Now, conventional wisdom may tell you you're not going to put a true freshman back there to return punts and kicks. That's conventional wisdom, and I honestly, I think Jalen Kilgore is going to be the punt returner this year. Kick return, I'm intrigued by Nick Harbor back there. I don't know. I think they may go with that. That's a guess, somewhat of a guess, but maybe not this year. Maybe the next. Lex Cyrus. I mean, he's really fast and really elusive. That's kind of really good in the open field. Pup Sellers could end up factoring into that too. That's a great thing. If all these receivers stick, and then you bring in Sequel Patterson, one of these guys probably will end up being massively good in the return game. Vakari Swain is a guy I did not mention as far as kick returns too. I like him in that department as well. So Jaden Sellers. So that's another kind of under the radar guy. There's a lot of under the radar players popping out. I know everybody wants to hear about the offensive line, and this is just the bottom line on them. Obviously the expectation is they're going to be better this year, and I think that's what most people want. They're bigger, obviously. But what was told to me by contact was they are ahead of any offensive line South Carolina's had in 4 or 5 years at this point in practice. And here you go with this. This is why that matters, because offensive line is basically if one guy makes a mistake out of the 5, you're still batting what 80%. Yeah, yeah, 80%. You're batting 800, but that can destroy an entire play. So it's a collective kind of unit that has to gel. And in practice, that takes time. That's another reason why defenses are always ahead of the offense, because the O-line is not gelled yet. And so, but the progress, the normal progress that is made between first practice and first scrimmage, the progress is greater than it has been. So I'm not making any promises with that group. I don't think anybody is. But we know 2 things. These are 2 facts about the offensive line. Fact 1, much bigger on the interior. And Josiah Thompson and the other tackles are bigger too. And Josiah's going into his 2nd year. That's number 1. That's an irrefutable fact. They're bigger. And then number 2 is that the progress is greater now at this point than it was on August 11th, 2024. So that's the offensive line report. And that's good. That's good. I have expectations they're going to be better. It's not going to ever be perfect, but I think with 16 back there and with a better operational understanding of the pass game from him, with better receivers, and yeah, I didn't get anything on the tight ends, so maybe so we won't really talk about them. I think they're all good. We've discussed them before, but with the tight ends and the folks around him, I think if the O-line could just take a step forward, just don't do things like get pushed around and let a defensive tackle from Akron blow up a run play. I mean, just don't do that. Let's eliminate that. Don't, you know, Oklahoma's defense in the second half really got after them when it was 32-3. And that's kind of time you're supposed to just impose your will, because at that point, defenses get sick of chasing people around. And, they didn't do it. Oklahoma, whatever momentum they had in that game was established then. So, things like that. Don't let a guy run free when you're just frozen. I mean, you know, but if you can hold them up a little bit and you can get the pass game going, and then the Tom Sellers does have to escape, which will happen, obviously he can make a defense pay. So, a couple of encouraging things there about the offensive line. It was not, the feedback was not, they got completely dominated. This is going to be a long year. Now, I can't tell you that there won't be feedback out there that says defensive line whipped the offensive line's butt. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that they're making progress. How about that? All right, that's the scrimmage, folks. First scrimmage in the books for the South Carolina Gamecocks. I think they scrimmage again this weekend, and then school will start, and they'll start prepping for the Virginia Tech Hokies. We're less than 3 weeks out. 3 weeks from yesterday, South Carolina kicks off the 2025 season in Atlanta. Cannot wait to go to that game. Cannot wait for football season to get here, folks. It's these weeks are going fast, but starting next week, it's going to be sort of slow. It just always happens that way. All right. Hope to see you on the show. Check out the morning show. Also, Sports Talk tonight on the Chief Sports app. This is JC Shurburtt with coffee, and I'm out. Holla.